Hello, my name is Ugochukwu Ukwembu. I'm a cloud engineer. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to deploy a WordPress application into Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud instance. This tutorial is the second in a 4-part video series where I deploy applications to the AWS cloud. Let me begin my presentation. All right, so as always, we begin from my console home in AWS Cloud. The prerequisite to follow along with this tutorial is I complete our first tutorial where we deployed a LAMP stack into an EC2 instance. So the service we're using is EC2. So I click on it. It takes me to I click on instances. It takes us the list of instances we have. And you can see my instances are stopped. But one thing I do with the cloud is once I'm done with a resource, I stop it. It's a way of saving on cost. So now that I want to come back on and use the resource, I restart it. So while that machine is starting, if you recall the first tutorial we did, we set up this instance from scratch, and then we installed Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP in that instance. Okay, so our instance is up and running. We want to connect to it so that we can deploy our WordPress application on it. So this is one way to connect to it, but there are several ways here. I'm comfortable using SSH client. So I copy the command for that. And if you look, it gives us some steps on how to connect to it. If you need refresher, it's in the tutorial 1. Tell us to open an SSH client, locate a private key. So basically, this is the private key that I used to launch that instance or create that instance. So I'm going to open my SSH client there. Git bash. Okay, so I dropped that command I copied, and I just need to make an adjustment to that command. Okay. Instead of root here, I want to log in as EC2 user. Okay, ask me if I want to continue connecting. I say yes. So that gives me access to that instance. If you look, it's in E2 EU North 1, that's in Stockholm, right? So that's where our instance is, and we've connected to it. So first things first, we want to install WordPress, right? So I think I have quite a number of ready-made commands, so we don't spend too much time typing. So we're going to need some packages for our WordPress application. So I copy that command to install the packages. I go back to my terminal and I paste that command there. Okay, I think I'm going to, if I try to run that, it tells me I need to run that command as a super user. So I need to start with sudo. All right, so we already installed some of those packages. That's from tutorial 1 and 2. So if you've not followed up, you might want to catch up on that so that you don't miss any step we are going to take here. So let me change to the directory of our Apache document root. So from there, we see some of the files we worked on initially. So if we just want to refresh and see what we have there, we go grab our machine IP for this instance. So if I click that and I type index, we see the code we deployed to that instance in tutorial 2. Then if we want to see what we did in tutorial 1, that's this my sample data. I drop that machine IP and I try to access, right? So this is continuing with our dynamic, this is a dynamic application, meaning that it's fetching that data from a database, from the MySQL database that we installed on that server in tutorial 1. So let's get back. So we're done with, let's get back into our instance. We're done with all those files. We don't need those, we don't need them again. So let's remove them. As a Linux command to delete those files. Those files are gone. Let me delete the folders. Right, so our directory is empty. So I move on to, let me install my WordPress. Let me download the latest version of WordPress installation package into that Apache document root. So I have that command there. And if I do an ls, we see our tar.gs file there. We still need to unpack that. So that's the command to do that. So after unpacking that, so we have our WordPress directory there. You might want to cd into that to see what we have in our WordPress folder. So the next thing we want to do now is, of course, never mind, these commands, there is going to be a blog. The link to the blog is going to be below. And I'm going to, all these commands are going to be there. So you don't need to strain your eyes to try and see if you can copy these. So that done. Okay, what we want to do now is log into our MySQL server and create the user that's our database. Let me get out of that WordPress. So let me log into my MySQL or MariaDB actually, still MySQL. Okay, so what's our password? I'm actually typing a password. If you're not familiar with that, Linux will not make it obvious that I'm typing a password. Okay, so let's show, so I'm in MariaDB server. So those are the databases we already have there. You can see in my sample database where this data was being fetched from there. All right, so what do we want to do? We want to create a database for our WordPress application. And first we want to, when data we're in the MariaDB server, let's create a user for that for the WordPress application. So I come here, I paste that command. All right. After creating the user, the next thing I want to do is create the database. So that's a command to create a database. I copy that, get back into my paste that there. Okay, create database. grant all privileges on WordPress database to the user, right? So basically that user will only have access to that database, that WordPress user we created. And the next thing is we want to flush the privileges to pick up all our changes. So we copy that back to our terminal, paste it. All right, so if I do a show databases, right, we can see that our WordPress database has been created, though it's empty right now. It's WordPress itself where we're installing the application, and we'll go into that database and do what it needs to do in that database. It has installed all the tables and all the other things it needs to for the application to work. So let's exit the MySQL client. All right, so we're back into our Apache document root directory. So the next thing we want to do, okay, is to make a copy of our let's make copy that. So basically, WordPress uses what we call a wp-config file. Let me get back into the WordPress directory. Okay, so you can see the structure, right? These are document roots. Let me get into that WordPress directory. Right, so these are the files that come with a WordPress application. If you notice here, there's a wp-config-sample.php file. That's the file that holds the credentials that WordPress uses to access our database and pretty much make it dynamic. So we'll first make a copy of that file. The format of the file where the WordPress uses is wp-config. So if we do an ls, we basically copied wp-config sample to wp-config. That's that there, right? So now we're going to edit wp-config to include the credentials that we need to access our WordPress database, right? So what we do there is we nano into wp-config. See, that's like my, let me use a sudo nano text editor. Vim is also another text editor that you could use if you're familiar with it. So this wp-config file contains the data credentials that it needs to access our database. So what's our database name? If we're correct, it's WordPress DB. Let's delete the old name, WordPress DB. And then if you recall, what was our username? We use WordPress user. And our password was my Mary 907. All right, so that's our password. Then there's still another section there that holds our salts. So we need to get new salts. So we need to let's try and generate salts with that URL there. It's oops, I copy that. Fine. Let's see. Okay, that's good. So those are salts. It's something that WordPress uses to make things a little secure for WordPress users. So I go back there you know, you don't use that one that comes with default with WordPress. There's nothing there. So after pasting, okay. All right. So what happened there? Now I'm not sure what's okay. When I'm not sure of things like this, I just take everything out really. Let me copy that again and go back there and paste like this. Okay. All right. So, all right. I think I know what's happened there. No problem. We'll continue this time. All right. That done. I do a Control X and I do a Y. Let me try and look into that salt again. See how it looks this time around. All right. It should still be okay. Control X. Okay. Salt's done. Uh, if we recall, back in of course, you shouldn't use the same salt I have or I used. You're going to generate your own salts every time you want to work there, right? So if you recall, we're in the WordPress directory, but this is not the root directory for Apache document root. So we want to copy or move all those files from there to the upper directory. So that done, if I do an ls, you see it's moved everything from that WordPress directory. So if I cd to that HTML documentary directory and I do an ls, we see all those are WordPress files, right? So I think this is a good time to remove that latest.tar.gs file. Okay, with a sudo. Yep, and also let me remove that empty WordPress directory. All right. So if I do an ls, yeah, that's gone. We only have our WordPress files left with us. All right. So there's still one more configuration change we need to make. That's let's do a sudo. All right. So we need to go to a particular line. Let me make this a little longer. Okay, this is where we need to go. We need to be. And then this allow override none. We change it to allow override all. Space there. All right, so I do a Control X. That's to save. Y, and that's done. So if I do an ls here, all right. So I need to clear that with a clear command to clean up my console screen. All right, so that's done. We still need to install one more library. We need to install this package, or rather one more package. So paste that. All right. All right. Yes. So basically that's package we needed for is to install PHP graphics drawing library on the Amazon Linux 2023 server, right? So we've done that. Uh, so the next thing we need to do is we want to restart that server. All right. So WordPress started. So right now we're ready to install WordPress in that server. So let's go to our browser. We're done with this. So let's take our IP, take that as machine IP. And if we've done everything well, right? Okay, so we have WordPress installed in that server. So let's give it a title. Okay, installing and configuring WordPress blog on Amazon Linux instance 2. And let's take a username, blog admin. Yeah, let's select that strong password. Let me copy it to make sure I have it. Email, all right. Let me use my email. Okay, so all that done. Let's install WordPress. Okay, WordPress installed. Don't worry, no need to do that. Probably going to delete this an instance once this demonstration is over. So log admin, and let me paste that command that I copied there, and let me log in. All right, so welcome to WordPress. We've got WordPress installed in that machine, and yeah, it's pretty much good to go from here. So let's make our first post in terms of at least from the infrastructure side. The job of the infrastructure engineer or cloud engineer is done here. Machine setup. So at this stage, you hand off credentials to if you're in a team, we have the front end developer developing the WordPress application. And then, he hands over, just giving the login credentials, give him access, and he continues. But if you're the full stack engineer, if you're the cloud engineer and also the full stack engineer, then yeah, your work continues, right? At this stage, you go, okay, let's make a first post. Our first post on our WordPress, on our EC2 WordPress installation. Okay, so let's save that draft, and let's look at that draft. Okay, it looks okay. It looks okay, right? So let's get started. Let's make an edit. Let's give WordPress its proper full name. All right, and then let's publish our article. Publish, and yeah, we have the IP address of that, and then we can view that. So our first post is on, directory is on. So for at this level, what next you might want to do, our server is up and running. Of course, we can see it's using machine IP here. So normally at this level, what you now want to do, if you want to now customize it for your use, is of course you go register a domain name and then point that domain name. Well, I wouldn't recommend you using the machine IP. Normally this machine IP, if you've noticed with this demonstration we've been doing, when we start and stop an instance, the machine IP actually changes. It's a feature of AWS Cloud, right? So if I stop this machine and I start it again, chances are that it won't have the same IP address. So machine IPs keep changing. It's ephemeral, right? It's deliberate. So if you want to make your IP address permanent, there's AWS has a resource called Elastic IP. So you're pretty much going to spin up that Elastic IP. I think you're probably going to find it. Yeah, Elastic IPs. You create an Elastic IP, then attach that Elastic IP to this instance. So once you've successfully attached an Elastic IP resource to this instance, you can stop the instance and start it again. This time around, it's that IP will now remain permanent or semi-permanent. So it doesn't change like this one that will, if I stop and start again, it's probably going to change. But if you attach an Elastic IP to that, it's going to stick. It's still going to look like an IP like this, but it's going to be permanent. And then it's going to be attached to that machine. So even if you start and stop your instance, it will still be that same Elastic IP. So now when you get a custom domain name, you now point that domain name to that Elastic IP, right? I've seen some developers make the mistake of pointing a domain name to the ephemeral IP address without attaching an Elastic IP. And maybe when they do maintenance, when they stop the machine and start it again, it changes IP and then the domain name breaks, right? So don't forget, if you want to get professional and point a domain name, you point it to an Elastic IP. So that brings this tutorial to an end. So one thing I've not been doing previously, or what I've not been doing on video, is when I'm done with a presentation like this, and this instance has fulfilled its purpose, just for demonstration purpose. So I'm going to go ahead and then stop that machine, right? And once it stops, it's no longer consuming resources. This is one of those things about one of those features about cloud, right? You should only use resources when they're useful to you. Once you're done, you shut down your resources. But if it's a live server, of course, it's going to be on, right? If it's going to be on, and so it's on all the time. So that in that situation is still useful 24/7, and I don't need to stop it, right? So that machine is stopping. It's going to stop in a few more seconds. And if I'm okay, yeah, there's still going to be a fourth tutorial where I'm going to install phpMyAdmin in that server, right? phpMyAdmin is a web interface with which you can interact with database. If you've been observant, we've been interacting with our MySQL client from the command prompt. And well, if my job was stopped, if I had a job and it stopped at configuring, installing WordPress on a server and handing it over to use, and I'm not going to be working on database server all the time, then that's fine. I don't need to install phpMyAdmin. But if I'm someone who's going to be interacting with database all the time, I might want to use phpMyAdmin, right? Because there's a reason for that. You find out in the fourth tutorial, right? Where the title of that tutorial is installing and configuring phpMyAdmin in that server and trying to, secure it too, right? So this brings the end of this presentation. If you find this video useful, like and share. If you have questions, just drop them below in the comment section and I will respond to them, right? So the object of these 4 tutorials I'm showing is to give you the basics you need to build dynamic websites, backend for web applications, backend for mobile applications, and pretty much anything you can build using the LAMP stack, right? Another objective too is to give you an idea of what it is or what it takes to deploy to the cloud, right? The cloud is here to stay and it's a level ahead of legacy technologies. And with AWS Cloud, the leading cloud provider, you should know that you're getting some of the best computing services in the industry. All right, so thank you very much. My presentation has come to an end. My name is Ugochukwu Kwebu. I'm a cloud engineer. See you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.